Welcome to Level Up TV at levelupyourgame.net. I'm Disrepute, and I'm with Vor. Hello, Vor.
Nice intro where you introduce yourself first.
Alright, you don't need to keep going on about that, mate. I can't
Well, it's
help
just rude, isn't
it's
it?
just
It's
inbuilt.
just
It's the script structure that we designed years ago. Me and MVC sat down and we said the most important thing is to introduce ourselves first. That's what we just decided. Simple as.
Whatever.
Before we start, everybody remember, sign up to our Twitter, twitter.com/leveluptv, our Facebook, facebook.com/leveluptv, and subscribe to our YouTube at youtube.com/leveluptv. Of course,
any benefits?
Any benefits? Okay, yeah. So you hear about when we're going live, when we're doing streams on Twitter. We have lots of extra cool stuff that I randomly post up on Facebook. Well, I wouldn't say lots. Maybe once in a blue moon I might put something up on Facebook. And on YouTube you get all our VODs that we put up on YouTube. Obviously if you're subscribed they just notify you of when they come up. So worth all them. Obviously if we get more followers as well, there's more chance that we'll get more Quake tournaments, more viewers, more sponsorship opportunities. You know, it all multiplies up, adds up, it's all important. So please do that. And today it is a random show that we just decided to do, which I'm calling Retribution Solution. Good name, Vor.
Well, it's a pretty clever name, isn't it? It kind of implies what the content is going to be.
Oh, right. Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
No, you didn't, did you?
No, I just liked...
Just thought you were clever with your little rhyming names.
Yeah, I didn't even realise the map was called Retribution, actually. I just liked the word. But anyway, as implied by the name, it is going to be...
Well, really, the map's called the Temple of Retribution.
No, it's just called Retribution, I'm afraid.
I'm sorry, but the original name was the Temple of Retribution.
Okay. DM7, of course, you're...
And what is that in there?
Would know it by.
Look at it.
It's a furnace, a body furnace. Yeah, that's all it is. It makes sense, yeah. So Retribution, classic DM7 map of Quake 3. It was in the map pool for a little time in Quake.
A little
Live.
time. It was well over a year and a half. It was in.
Yeah, we saw early Nations Cups with it in, Open Cups in Clan Base, etc. ESL, EMS.
But of course, it did have a slightly different layout, and also other problems such as 15-minute time limit and 12-second weapon respawn.
So yeah, it did play a little bit different perhaps, and we have seen since then quite a few changes to Quake, and we've had quite a while off without this map, but there is an opportunity that this map might be back in the pool for Clan Base Euro Cup and Open Cup this season, or maybe just in future tournaments, because it is, I think, one of the unique gameplay styled maps, and quite interesting, got a good focus to it. So we just thought we'd do a little video, as requested by Lam actually on IRC, to do a little guide on how you might play Retribution. So Vor, why don't you just take us away and explaining this main room? I guess it's the red armor room you'd call it.
Yeah, you'd call it the red armor room. You know why you'd call it that? Because what I'm looking at right now is a red armor.
Zoom in there. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
And it's in a room, making it a red armor room.
That's a really accurate description, isn't it? Yeah. Self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, other than the red armor room, other than it being a red armor room, it also has that. And you know what that is, don't you? That is a railgun.
Is that the railgun? Wow.
Yeah. Probably, I don't know, the most important weapon on this map, because obviously there's no lightning gun. You've only really got, well, 4 guns on this map, other than your machine gun. Shotgun, rocket, rail, plasma.
Yeah.
And out of all of those, in an open room like this, railgun is going to cause a hell of a lot of damage to people coming in the doorways. 3 doorways. You know, you can stand at the back here, and anyone coming through any of those, unless they somehow hit a direct rocket on you, which I don't think is going to happen, you know, you're pretty safe. I mean, plasma spam can be an issue, which you can expect to come through that doorway if they picked up plasma down there and then gone through there, through the teleport, if it takes them to Mega, and then they come back into this room. But yeah, sitting in this room railing,
There's a
you're pretty
plasma gun at
safe.
quad too, so often through the main
Yeah.
doorway. But yeah, exactly. It's predictable which perhaps routes you'll see which weapons from anyway. So yeah,
And whilst it's hard to say how this is going to play compared to Quake 3, I mean, typically in Quake 3, a railer will be sitting in this room, you know, waiting for people to cess in with machine gun and occasionally a plasma and occasionally a rocket launcher. You know, and a good railer is going to hit at least 50% rail on this map. And, well, you get hit the second you come through a doorway, and that already puts you in serious trouble because there's only one red armor on this map, like there is on most, but there's only one yellow as well. So you're not going to really expect a guy to come through a doorway and survive, 4 rails. You come through that doorway and get hit by one rail, and you're in serious trouble.
so we can see that the absolute main important area on the map, you would say, is the red armor and the railgun because of the power of first the armor and of course the weapon. So Vor, why don't we just run around the rest of the map, have a quick look at the
Should we go first?
layout. Let's go towards the yellow. Let's go towards the yellow armor.
So, I guess we should say one thing. You notice how much health there is in this area. I mean, you've got 50, 50, 50. In that corridor there's 225s. So, if you're constantly trying to attack into this room and not picking up kills, there can be a lot of health to either try and steal away or for the team defending red armor to pick up after they've killed you.
25 below as well.
Yeah, 25 down there.
So there's a lot of... it's something we don't see on, say, Hidden Fortress, which is obviously an aggressive map as well, is there's not that much health around. Whereas this map, there's tons of health everywhere.
Yeah, and another 50 there. So yeah, here's the rocket launcher. So, there's multiple spawns in this room. I can't pinpoint exactly where they are, having not played it for so long, which is kind of not a good thing to admit to, but, you'll typically get someone spawning in this room at the start of the game, so they'll get rocket launcher and look to head straight into the red armor room.
Basically, there's one spawn at yellow, which would normally drop down and be trying to jump on to get that rocket. There's one in the rocket room.
Yeah.
And you could potentially get one inside the corridor towards red armor. They wouldn't probably go for the rocket. The guy spawning in here should get the rocket, but if a teammate's going to grab the yellow, which is just in this room ahead of us, then you would expect him to leave that rocket launcher for his teammate. So yeah, this is the yellow armor side of the map. The yellow armor, obviously the only other major armor item. The opposite end to the red, and although most people maybe say you have to hold the red side of the map, there is a viable strat to play in this yellow. We saw it at the end of Quake 3 when rail was much more powerful, in fact.
Sweden. What was the game we saw? Yeah, Sweden. I think it was against France. Yes, it was. And Sweden decided not to cess red. Although I think they did for small periods of time, but they didn't do it all game, as was, the norm in DM7 games back then, Retribution games. We saw them frustrate France, and there was a lot of whine in the chat about not attacking the red and things like that, but it paid off in the end because they won that map.
Yeah, and won the nation's championship as a result.
Sure did.
So then we move around to this quad area. There is some shards to remember.
Yeah, these shards are actually pretty important if you're not attacking red. I don't know, if you're cessing red, then depending on where you spawn, I don't believe it's worth taking the time to get them because, if you're being relied on by your teammates to get back to red as quickly as you can to join in the machine gun battle, then taking a detour to these shards is not worth it. But if you're not attacking red, then you should almost be timing these as if they're an armor.
Yeah, you've got 20's worth there, which is just less than the green armor. But,
yeah, and combined with the yellow, it gets someone stacked up towards close to what they would if they had that red.
This is...
Oh no, there's another 50. There's so many 50s on this map.
Yeah, this is the quad room, and generally there's not too much in here to work with. There is ammo crates, there's, as you say, the 50 health, the shards, and there's a plasma gun, but it's not a massively important room to hold for item's sake, but obviously positionally it's very important if you're going to hold this side of the map. And of course it becomes the focus of the gameplay when the power-up's about to spawn. So again, look, you got the 50 there, as Vor pointed out. You got another 225s just ahead of that at the bottom of the staircase that leads to the mega health room, and there's a 225s inside the middle corridor leading towards the red. So this is probably one of their most health plentiful maps that we've got, and is one of the most aggressive maps as well.
Well, it's the sort of health you'd expect to have when you've got 8 players on a map. If you were honest, you know, there's a general feeling that there's a bit of a lack of health on a lot of maps.
I mean, you might say this map maybe lacks a bit of armor though, and so it balances itself out.
Maybe.
But I would say like maps could use perhaps more health and armor generally in TDM. Before we go to the mega, let's go down to the basement area.
Idea.
Links up to the quad damage. There's also an opening above to the rocket launcher room, and this is the shotgun position. Again, 225s down here. The ammo crates, not that important, I wouldn't say, on this map to come down for ammo, but always useful. This is where they did move the railgun position originally in Quake Live. But
all sorts of little alcoves you can hide in. Not that I can ever imagine you having to hide from anyone in here now that the rail is gone, but
yeah,
sure this wasn't like this in Quake 3, was it? I don't remember these pillars.
I can't remember either, actually, thinking about it, but I remember playing in Quake Live, and I have used them successfully to evade people.
Yeah, I mean,
you've only got 2 angles to
good.
cover when you're behind this pillar. You've got to listen to people above for the drop down, which you can just move to the right slightly, and then as they come across you can move to the left again, so you stay out of view. You can obviously ambush people coming around from the quad area if you're standing where Vor was just then. But this basement's kind of lost its importance now that they've moved rail away from it, but still en route to attack yellow, red, if you need a gun. It's always a useful place to just drop down and get a shotgun. It's often up there spawned most of the time as a result of it not being en route as such anywhere, or really that useful. So let's move back to the quad area now and have a look at the mega side. Rail ammo, important to know where the rail ammos are. There's 3 on the map, one there,
and
one
there's
there.
one in the middle corridor from red to quad.
So this is the mega room. Now mega, I mean, 3 entrances we can see straight away there, but there is of course an invisible entrance, which is the teleporter exit, which we'll see in a second.
Well, actually, no, I won't get it. I won't do that now.
Yeah, so mega health, of course, like all health, spawns every 35 seconds on the map. It's also just established also that weapons spawn every 30 seconds, ammo crates every 40 seconds, armors every 25 seconds, and of course the quad every 2 minutes from pickup. In this room again we've got 3 5 bubbles as well, which actually amazingly do come in handy more than you'd imagine playing this map, because you're just dealing out so much damage so much of the time, and you're never really stacked with armor generally unless you've got a good lock on the red. This mega health, generally you'll see teams have at least 1 player focused on timing it at all times, and it is the difference really between the 2 teams. Usually you get the advantage from having the most megas.
Yeah, I mean, in different match situations, the way the mega is, contested, changes. I mean, if it's a battle over red constantly in the whole game, normally, yeah, it'll be 1 person timing it and looking to run a route that involves going from red to mega, and then often, ambushing people at quad who are on their way into red, and then, you back at red again, and you're doing that cycle over and over again. And you can probably find quite a lot of demos of good players from Quake 3 at least, because obviously we can only really talk about how this map layout played in Quake 3. You see a lot of players running that route, and when you've got a red and the mega and then you're coming in to the quad and there's just people heading straight into the red, not really expecting you, coming from behind in that situation, you'd pick up so many kills, and you'd really be and that's so much damage, and just capitalising on your team's control of that red and mega.
So why don't we just go around and show the basement route through to mega, which is obviously the key access point from the red armor room.
Obviously, you could come up this way, but you could expect to meet resistance because, you know, you've got a small little tight doorway. I mean, this is actually... I think it's a lot tighter than it looks because of this curved surface here, or this angled surface. So this is such a tight doorway to come through, you know, vulnerable to being shotgunned or rocketed. But then you've got this route as well. And there's a plasma ammo here, that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, you use so much ammunition on this map when it's played the traditional aggressive way that heavy ammo crate does actually gain in importance compared to other maps, especially things like plasma. You don't have a lightning gun on this map, as we pointed out. You don't have a grenade launcher, so that's already 2 weapons out of the way. Of course, you don't have all the additional guns like the nail gun and the BFG, etc. But weapons like the plasma become more important, especially the style of weapon it is. Spamming doorways is really effective on this map, and even in the open space, just forcing players to move position from their locked locations, it becomes very important in the ammo. So we're down at the teleporter room. You can actually see through the teleporter.
You can hide behind it as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can ambush
It's more of a
people.
clan arena thing, but if it's, say, the last minute of the game, you might want to consider all just coming down here if you've got a slender lead.
We've
One
seen
guy
it.
with rockets defends here, and then the rest of you are in here.
So yeah, you can actually see through that teleporter, Vor, and you just show us. And
Yeah,
look,
and you can see the Mega, which is invaluable, of course, because if you don't have a time on it, this is the safest position to just sit in and attempt to re-establish an idea of when the Mega is spawning.
of course, it is effectively a one-way route. It's very unlikely you're going to have a rocket launcher and enough armor and health to rocket jump back up.
No.
So you're usually going to have to go for this teleporter exit anyway. So when people see you drop down, they know they can ambush you. So you either need to be really quick or massively delay.
What this shows you, like looking from here, is if you're waiting for the Mega in the Mega room, it's best if you don't stand in the positions you can see from this teleporter. You can see off to the right and off to the left, and obviously behind it. But, as I'll show you when I go through, you can't see people who are stood up here, or here. And you're a pretty easy shot coming through the telly, either with rockets or shotgun.
So, if we just...
That's just something to think about.
If we just sort of summarise the sort of main tactical goals of the map, the general strategic play that we see often on this map, what you'll see is most teams' primary goal is the red armour and rail position. As a result, teams will rush in through the 3 doorways into the red armour room, using whatever weapons they can get to try and lock down this room. Usually a lot of machine gun fire. Now, some tips around that area: if both teams are attacking that area, there's going to be most people with machine gun. Some people will have a weapon. What you need to do as a team, you shouldn't even need to call this, you need to focus all your fire on the people with the weapons. If somebody's got, say, a railgun, if 3 of your guys run in, machine gun down that railgun guy, he's probably not going to have armor firstly anyway. If he does have it, it's still relevant. He'll die pretty quick with 3 machine gunners aiming at him. If you all aim at individual players, actually you're likely to not kill any of them, and then they'll come out on top with defense of the room if they've got any weapons, which they can then health up. As we've seen so much health about, build up armor, it's going to be harder moving in. So first key point of when you're assessing this room, aggressing this room, you need to focus your fire on one player, which is usually the player with the weapon.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even at 4 machine gun damage now, you know, a guy without armor is going to still melt with 3 people, potentially 4 people shooting him. So, you know, even with a nerfed machine gun, you can expect to take down one target extremely quick. And if you pick the right targets, as you said, you know, in an order of importance of whether or not they have a weapon, and then it's which weapon they have, you know, they're going to melt.
Now, when you are in control of this room, or even if you're just aggressing over it, but you have a small brief chance to just get a little bit of control, maybe you've killed all of them, they're just spawning, they're going to come back in, you need to lock it down. The key things you need to do are block off the doorways as much as possible.
Yeah, and the way you do that will depend on, a lot of times, what gun you have. I mean, typically, if, say, you have plasma, you can actually afford to push out, say, into this corridor if you you know, you have to kind of predict in some ways where you think they're going to come back through from, but you know, typically plasma gun in this corridor, even if you die, you know, the sort of wall of plasma spam you can put out, you know, it's difficult to get past. Same goes for this position here, although I don't think plasma is quite as good as it is in the middle doorway in this position. Because typically you can expect to come up against someone with a rocket launcher, and you know, you're in quite a tight space, so unlikely that you'll come out on top. Whereas this middle doorway, you're going to come up against machine gunners and a plasma gunner. Unlikely to see a rocket launcher attack from there.
Especially on the other side as well, the staircase is quite a good point to defend. If you can just listen to when somebody's gonna just running through that doorway, you pop round and look up this staircase, you're going to catch them in the air basically, and that's perfect for plasma or shotgun as they drop down from that mega
obviously
point.
The other weapon you'll expect to be defending red with is shotgun, and you know, I've always found if you're defending with shotgun, positions like this are really nice. It all depends on the situation. You obviously have to think about what's going to be the best way to defend at any time, but position like this with shotgun is nice because you're covering middle and you can do it the other side as well. You're covering middle and this doorway. You know, the only thing you have to worry about is if someone has escaped with a rail, but if you're over here, you can be railed from that doorway. The other side, it's the same. You can be railed from someone in there.
The way the important things to know though are, if you won't all have weapons generally. If both teams are playing a CES style, you might have one rocket between 4 of you, and maybe you get a rail. Then you might have one shotgun. If the people with the rocket launcher, the shotgun, the plasma, they need to be at this end that Vor's at all times basically. As soon as you get a break in play, any opportunity to get this end, you need to get here first of all, because you're just trying to block them off as early as possible in these doorways. Secondly, because if you stand up at the red armor end, you've lost your actual advantage of having those weapons, because it then becomes a ranged situation. Shotgun at range is useless. Plasma's a lot harder to hit. Rockets, I mean, shooting them long range can work out, but there's less chance.
All you can do from long range with rockets realistically is just shoot the doorways. You can't really, you know, aim for a direct rocket. All you can do is shoot from back here, which isn't ideal, I don't think. I mean, especially because, you know, you've got the health bubbles as well to think about. If your whole team is just sat back here spamming doorways, and you say are getting cessed down gradually by machine gun, you're going to need the 50 health there, and
so you're going to need to move that way
also.
anyway.
Yeah, so you need to be at the doorways, and if you take damage from someone who's just come down the stairs and hit you with a shotgun or a rocket or some plasma, you know, you can pick the health up straight away. No, if you let them get in the room, you're going to damage them, and they're going to pick the 50 health up.
One of the key aspects to remember as well is when they're moving into the room from one of those side doorways especially, their main focus will be to look towards the red armor straight away. So if Vor's in this position here and they're coming from the rocket launcher, the first place they look will be towards the red armor. That's pretty much at all times they'll do that.
Yeah, even if they know I'm here, it will pretty much be always they'll come in and look there to see if red's up or to see if there's a railer at the back. They won't naturally look this way, I'd say probably 90% of the time. So you're always going to get one free shot. Now they might turn around and start fighting you then, but you've already hopefully done a huge chunk of damage.
Obviously, if you are the railer, it's best to stand up the other end by the red armor, because you're using a ranged weapon, and so it's harder for them to take you out with a long range rocket or a plasma. Their best bet is then to machine gun you down at distance before they move in with a closer range weapon. So it's the opposite. If you're a rail, you want to be at the red armor end, and if you have any of the other weapons pretty much, you want to be at this end. And you want to spread out as a team. You want people either side.
Now in Quake 3 there was a few variations you could do if you had a railgun and then say a shotgun in addition to that. Now bear in mind in Quake 3 you could not drop weapons, so with some luck, you know, if you were surviving for a long period of time, getting reds, potentially getting megas as well, you might have built up, you know, the full arsenal of weapons. So you might have a rocket, a shotgun, a rail, a plasma. What I used to like to do was, if I did find myself in that situation, I would sit in a position like this, use my rocket if anyone comes, because you're going to hear them. No one is going to in a CES game, no one is going to be like walking around like this. Very unlikely. They're going to be in a hurry to get back to red. So I would find myself in a position like this, and then I could rail that doorway from here, and also the other doorway from people coming downstairs from Mega. Now the advantage of that is I'm no longer out in the open, so I'm not vulnerable to machine gun damage.
On top
So
of
if
that,
I've got my red and my rail, I'm in a very comfortable position sitting somewhere like this.
and on top of that, you have the 50 health, and you're blocking off one of the entrances, which means the rest of your team just needs to worry about the other two.
Yeah. Now, whether or not this is going to be something that happens much in Quake Live, now that we have drop weapon, it's hard to say, because you might be needing to drop weapons quite a lot if you're playing a really aggressive game. You might not find a situation where you actually hold all the weapons at any one time. But if you do, it's something to think about, because you are much more protected because you have these walls all around you.
So that's sort of talking about a defensive side of things. Now, if you're attacking and maybe a team is a little bit entrenched, we're not talking about locking it down, but maybe they've just got the red or just got a rail or something. The kind of key things you need to do when you're attacking the area, well, first of all, I would say the most important thing is to sync up your attack with your teammates so you all go in at the same time.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways you can do that. I mean, you could say, all be ready to attack at a specific time, on the in-game clock, or you could just all call ready to attack. I mean, there's different ways of doing it, but the thing you want to avoid is having one person go in at a time, and you're a free kill. I mean, you could be killed within a second of entering the room if you're on your own.
So, I mean, it's kind of like every map you would suggest that teams should do that, is when you're attacking an area, you attack at least, well, as many people as you can at the same time from different points. So ideally, in this situation, we're about to attack red armor, we'd have one guy coming from the mega entrance straight across from us, and maybe one guy coming from the quad doorway. So you've got 3 different angles that you're attacking that room from, and then obviously the 4th guy, whichever one, it sort of doesn't matter, they can support it. Probably from the quad entrance, because most spawns lead to that route, but you want to attack at the same time, and then, as we said earlier, you want to focus on the guy you fire who's got the weapon. And secondly, you don't want to mess around standing in a tight doorway, and this is especially important in the mega health, and sorry, not the mega health, the quad entrance, especially if you've got teammates around you. You need to get in the room, and then you need to move into a very open space. Or if you've got rocket launcher, obviously you want to dive on top of them as quick as you can. But
yeah, I mean, if I was in this position and if I had a rocket launcher, and say I've got a teammate with me who's got machine gun, now I would generally expect my teammate to be out this door as quick as he can and round to the right. Like, probably wouldn't get this far because he'd probably get a rail in the face and lose all his momentum. But you want him to be round up here, putting pressure up at the red, and then that leaves you with the rocket launcher to come in behind, and you could just check to the left to see if there is anyone here, because you've got a rocket launcher. I mean, you're better off using the rocket launcher in this close area rather than coming in, looking to the right, and then trying to spam rockets over to red.
yeah, because even if you did,
you're a lot less likely to hit.
even if you did get up to the red position and maybe even take him out, you're still then that end of the map with the long-range rocket shots. So it's still better to just move in, if you've got a weapon, to the key point you want to be in the first place anyway. So there's a few points about that. If you've got a weapon and a guy with no weapon, it's a bit like a power-up situation on Grim Dungeons. If you get the quad, you send in the player without the power-up first to take the initial damage and shots, so that the quad can come in behind after they've shot, especially with a railgun. Remember, there's a reload time. So if
drawing out the ambushes, because the guy with the machine gun will come in, probably look to the right, and then the guy behind might see or hear that he's being shot from someone in this area. So you've moved around to the right, you've opened up space at the doorway, and then the guy with the weapon can come in, deal with someone here if there is anyone, and then look to support over at the red as well. But you certainly wouldn't want a rocket launcher coming in first, because
he's going to
can't really do anything in that direction, and he's going to take the first hit from anyone who might be in this area.
The other point about that, of course, is getting out of the doorways, is that if Vor's the rocket launcher player and there's a guy ahead of him, if he just stands in the doorway, then Vor's not going to be able to rush in after him. All the fire is going to come in to this very tight doorway.
Yeah.
And you're very likely, I mean, if there's a rocket coming in, you're going to take damage there. If you're out in this open area, the rocket hitting you, the likelihood is much lower. So you always have to think about space.
Well. I mean, look how much room you've got to dodge if you don't move out. You've got nothing. You've got this tight little doorway that's going to be completely pelted with machine gun fire, plasma, all sorts. Whereas if you move out, you've got everywhere. I mean, you could even dodge around this pillar if there's someone up there. But, you know, if you stay here, you're going to die. And not only that, then the teammate behind you, still waiting to come in, who can't get past you, you know, he's going to be killed as well.
Even if he doesn't get shot initially, if you're killed in that doorway, they're still going to be aiming at the doorway. You're back to square one, where you've got no advantage of having two players there, because they're just going to be waiting for one guy to come in that position now.
Yeah, man, it should be mentioned that it can be, if you're playing a CES game, a very frustrating map, because, you know, more often than not, you've got machine gun, you're going to come around here, you're going to be hit by a rail at about probably this point here, if there's a railer up there, you know, a lot of the times, because the railer's going to have his rail trained on this doorway a lot of the time. So you'll come around, get hit by a rail straight away, and then you might get a shotgun in the back, and you're dead. I mean, that will happen a lot on this map, playing aggressive. But, you know, you have to deal with it, and it's just doing the right thing. I mean,
it's a game of attrition.
If you've got a teammate behind you, it is the right thing for you to just come in here, you know, albeit you might die within a second or two, but you've still made the right play, because it's a lot better than just trying to lure out a shot here, getting hit, and then killed in the doorway instantly. Because you give your teammate behind you no real chance to do anything then.
What we're essentially saying as well is, like every map, positioning, the angles of play, the space around you is important to understand in a team game, especially team deathmatch. But this map is visually very apparent, and it's quite clear. You're almost playing on a flat 2D paint here, and you just have to understand that the angles that people are aimed at, the normal angles, they're aiming at the doorway. As soon as you move away from that doorway, they're going to have to aim away from that doorway, which means that your teammates get a free entry into the room. Secondly, I mean, the tightness of that angle in the doorway, there's only going to be a certain area you can come through in that area. As soon as you're into the open room, they're going to be aiming a lot wider area that you could cover. So it just makes it a lot more difficult for the defending team to hit. Dive in the room, get to the side. Actually, if you show, for example, Vor, go through the quad doorway and run through into the room and show the importance of what you can do in that, because it's a little bit harder coming from those side doorways, because you almost have less options. But you come through this main doorway into the red room, you can dive either left or right straight away.
Yeah, I mean, you can be round. I mean, you'll probably get hit, let's be honest. You'll get hit coming through this doorway, you know, at least half the time. But you can be round, and then you're nearer health if the health happens to be up. Whereas if you just stay in this area here, look how narrow this corridor is.
And just like the other doorway, you're blocking off teammates getting in. The most important thing you need to do is not stand. See sort of where this sort of brown square is? Get off that. Now you can dive forwards down onto the bridge towards the rail. That's often something that messes them up completely as well, because you're changing the angle at which the height, the vertical angle at which they can aim at you. So that's also a good solution. You can even rush in from the side doorways and dive onto that middle bridge. But basically you just want your whole team, you need to visually see and be aware of the space around you and where your teammates are standing. So if Vor comes in here and there's a teammate to the left of him, standing on that left area, Vor's not going to run to the left, because there's going to be two of them then, and they're going to be both easier to hit, and all the opposition just need to aim in this one area. It makes it very easy. Vor's going to run to the right.
Exactly. They're here.
So then they've got to look, you know, 45 degrees or whatever difference between two different players. So always important about the space and positioning, and trying to make it difficult angles for them. Even if you can rush into the room and there's a railer at the back, and you can just make him delay his shot a little bit because you dive behind the pillar, or you make him miss his first shot, and then you might think, well, okay, as soon as I jump he's going to shoot me again. But if you can just start creeping up towards him, it's all about delaying their shots, making and creating space, just surviving in here as long as possible.
Because let's say that there is a rail at the back of the room, unless he stands right on the red, which quite often people don't. They are either off to the left slightly to give themselves a better shot over at this door, or they're over here to give themselves a better shot at, you know, this door, either around here for a, you know, immediate shot as people come around the corner, or here. You know, people rarely stand on this red, so if you can actually get out of the doorway, you know, they might have to contend with trying to shoot you around this pillar, which means, you know, they've got to move a lot more than they otherwise perhaps would, might affect their aim. You know, every shot they miss gives you your team a lot more chance to win the area over, because, you know, there will be times where people are probably going to hit 60, 70 rail defending this, but if you make it more hard for them to hit you, you know, chances are perhaps they won't hit so well.
And generally
gives you a lot more chance.
People hitting a run of hits, so they get on a roll with hit, hit, hit. So if
you
can
can
break
dodge
that
as well, you know, there is a pressure on someone who has a rail in this room to hit their rails. If you make them miss a couple, you know, they might fall apart and just miss everything.
So
you know, because once you miss a rail, you could expect to actually, if you miss a rail and someone comes through this doorway and you've got no teammate here to help you as well, you know, before you know it, the guy's up these stairs here, you know, MGing you in this area, and you know, it's not always easy to hit those pressure rails when there's someone in your face MGing you. But if you're just sat at this doorway, of course, it's a totally different story.
When you have the railgun as well, there's certain positions, they might be subtle, but they can be important if you're, especially if you've not got armor and you can't really afford to take too much damage. If you're standing off to the side, you can actually position a pillar in front of one of the other doorways if you're aiming at a certain doorway. So if you stand here, that front doorway is you're saved by that pillar from taking any damage to that front doorway until people have run in, and you're covering the side one. Of course, you're not going to take any damage from the other doorway to Mega because they can't get the angle until they're in the room.
Well, let's go through something you could actually think about. If you've got a teammate here, right, with a shotgun or something, then, you know, you want to cover the front like that, perhaps if you don't have armor, and shoot towards that doorway, and then you've got a teammate there helping you with anyone who comes through that doorway, so you can sort of feel, you know, worry less about it. And it's the same on this side. If you've got a teammate down there, you know, cover the middle, shoot towards this doorway.
You can also cover that side doorway and shoot down to the main doorway.
You don't have to literally totally cover the middle. It's just so it's obscuring you slightly. Now, when you dodge, you're not as visible from someone who's coming through that doorway. You know, they're going to have to spam like through the sides of the pillar trying to get some machine gun damage on you.
So yeah, just all these small things just do add up to map knowledge and experience and just helping you out. Now on the bridge is another good position to rail from. If you stand in line with the side doorways, just on the bridge, but half your body's obscured. So go to the bridge just drop down onto it, and then you can stand here with the rail often. This is a great position, seeing players like Chris play this really effectively.
It's dangerous though.
It is dangerous, but it's at odds with what people expect. So when people are still running in from the sides, they're still looking towards red, towards the rail end, and you're suddenly confronting them from this lower position. They're not used to shooting that. If they've got a rocket, that's a difficult rocket shot until they get right to the edge to shoot you. Shotgun, you're still obscured half your body. Plasma, again, it's not the best shot to take, is it? So it's a good shot to get a couple of rail shots in. Then you can, it's a safe position to drop off, go through the telly or whatever, back up maybe towards the bounce pad if you've actually hit your shots and you feel relatively safe. But anyway, that's some insight on how how you play the red room. So I think we should go to the quad area now, because that's it's not really the second objective, or secondary objective, but it is a major objective to win the power up on every map, obviously, and especially this one in terms of turning around control. If you can't quite lock down control on red and you're losing out a bit, then much like Hidden Fortress, a good power up run can totally turn that around and get you on control of the red. So obviously we talked about the items in this room. How might you set up for a quad damage?
Well, you know, there's a lot of ways of looking at it. It depends obviously on the game situation as always, but you know, you've got these two doorways. This is the doorway obviously from Mega, and then the doorway from the yellow side. You have to always think about those, because you know, most good teams, as in any situation, they're going to want to attack from multiple angles, and there are four, well technically three, but kind of four angles you can expect people to come from. Obviously the doorway from red, that's the quickest route from red. This route here is an option when they come from Mega. You know, they can either come in high through there or low from that staircase below Mega. It's kind of the same direction in a way, but it does provide a variation, and obviously this is the other one. So you have to think about defending those three. Now obviously...
And the basement.
Yeah, and the basement as well, although that's even rarer, I guess. Although, you know, you can't rule it out. So obviously you want to think about, firstly, are they actually going to come from all directions? You know, if you can identify where the attack's going to come from, then that's ideal. Which is why I always think when you're defending this quad, if you can, just initially, have someone here to keep an eye on whether they're going to come through here. Now, I don't think in most cases you should look to fight them in here. You should just identify that they are coming from here and then back straight off the quad. Obviously you're going to tell your teammates on comms there's 1, 2, maybe even 3 people coming from Mega. So instantly that means the setup of the rest of your team can change. Now perhaps you had someone in here trying to do the same, like, are they coming from rocket launcher? Well, as soon as he hears the call that there's 2 or 3 from Mega, you can just totally abandon this,
I think
get back in here and get ready to fire.
That position you're in as well is probably the most simple to cover a large area. At the yellow armour, looking down, you get a very long distance, a long amount of time to know which direction they're coming from on the yellow side of the map. So you're standing at yellow, you're looking through that doorway towards red. You can see if they've come in that certain period. Now often players will just look, see you there and think, well, it's not really worth me running all that way down there to die to this guy standing here. You can leave this area 5-6 seconds before quad or whatever and safely assume that no one's going to come from this route. So then you've covered off 2 entrances just by standing here for maybe 20 seconds, 15 seconds and maybe just 10 seconds before quad, just making sure nobody comes this direction. Then you would just retreat back to the quad position, and then you'd have a lot more firepower to defend the other sort of 2 angles, I guess I'd call it, which is the main doorway and then the Mega side.
Yeah, I think it'd be worth saying as well that if you happen to be somehow stacked and you've not been like red or whatever, then this is one of the safest positions to actually stand in and wait for the quad. You can sit in this doorway, you can sit here, and then you've got a very short step to the quad, which obviously you should have the exact time on so that you don't jump on there early and get destroyed, or you don't jump on there late and actually miss the pickup. But you know, this is a quite safe spot to sit waiting for the quad.
Of course, you're also blocking a spawn if you stand right against it, against the wall there, which is obviously useful. There is another spawn in this little corridor to the right which you have to be wary of. If you've killed all their team and then you just stop worrying about them coming back, one guy can just spawn there and just dive on the quad last second. So that's something to worry about. There's a couple more spawns that side of the map as well that Vor was just looking at down there, and then there's one above.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So always be wary about spawns in this room.
Or there.
There might even be 2 this bit. Either way, it's sort of like, if we look at Dreadful Place, the best way to stop your opponents getting in on the power-up is to push out as far as you can, realistically speaking, so you get an early warning where they are, you slow down their progress into your area, and then you slowly retreat back when you need to, if you need to. This map is difficult because, as we said, there are actually 5 entrances, although obviously they're coming from just 3 sources into the room, and the angles that people can get are quite difficult to defend against sometimes, especially if they've got railguns. If there's a railer, say, coming from there, this position Vor's looking at now, the central corridor, obviously you can spam them back, but they can hit maybe 1, 2 rails, especially the lineup on the quad is a very easy shot.
Yeah, another thing, we didn't talk about actually positioning on how to defend this entrance. Again, in my opinion, you should be out literally as far as this, looking into red just to see what's going on if you can without taking a rail, which you might if there's an extremely good railer on the other team, you know, but just be in this sort of position because, one, you've got 2 25s here. If you sit here, take some damage from people coming around the corner, you can take the health then back off the quad. Whereas if you're sat back, say here, spamming rockets, plasma, shotgun or whatever, all you're going to do is hit people and they're going to take this.
and then they're going to be full health, say again, just to dive
Yeah.
in and attack you. So you're just
There is
removing that extra
there's no real
advantage.
danger. As long as the rest of your team position correctly, there's no real danger of being in here. There's not going to be suddenly a surprise where, oh look, there's 4 people on the quad, why was I in here? No, if your teammates are doing their jobs, then you'll know in advance if there's a threat from there or there that you need to help deal with. But if you sit here, you can just absorb this health as they attack from this direction, rather than be here and let them take the health.
Let's remember as well, you don't have to kill them because the objective of playing this area at this point is to get the power up. So if we can just put them off, that's enough. Which is exactly why putting the guy at yellow looking down towards red is so useful, and putting a guy in that central corridor. Now, he doesn't just need to hide there and try and ambush them. You can fire a bit of plasma, you can fire a rocket or whatever, put them off actually even trying to take this route. Then they'll have to take, firstly, a longer route with perhaps worse instant angles on the quad shot. But secondly, if you can put them off going the yellow route by having someone there, and then this route by spamming that doorway a bit, they're going to be going the plasma. That means you've got 2 entrances to cover, and obviously you're only looking in one direction to cover it.
Yeah, because it should be noted that, as soon as you let people through this doorway, then it starts to get a bit more difficult. Say you've got someone in here, or you've got someone this side. I mean, if you're all stood back up at the quad, you've got no real angles to shoot these people. I mean, you can see from standing, up here, you're not going to be shooting people who are hiding around these pillars.
It's exactly like the
You've
reverse
got to worry,
situation of
there's no shots.
the reverse situation of the red side is that people in those doorways, this is sort of reversing it around to when you're attacking quads, you want to get out the doorway as quick as possible into these more open areas that are actually covered by pillars as well on this side of the map, so that the shots become more difficult. In Quake, if you stand in a doorway, you're vulnerable. You need to get out into the open. It makes it much harder for them to hit you, because you've got so much more area to move in and dodge.
There are situations where you wouldn't want to just go around a corner, and you might want to dodge here. If you're the only person here, if you're not blocking teammates behind you, and stuff like this, where obviously you're in the doorway dodging in and out, can be a difficult person to hit. But if you've got teammates behind you, it shouldn't be something you're really doing, I don't think.
No, because
you
you're
want
just
to be out
blocking
the
your
doorway.
teammate.
Exactly, because your teammates are stuck behind you, watching you dodge in the doorway so amazingly, and they're like, "Yeah, but we can't do anything. We can't do anything. You're keeping us out of the action." Whereas if you come in, and even if you just stand here or something, you've got the ability for the teammates to come through and also actually do something.
So, the most dangerous point, I'd say, if you can, because I think you can easily block off the yellow entrance. I don't think there's too much threat usually from the main entrance, because it's a more difficult route to get to quad anyway. I think this doorway here is the most dangerous for somebody coming and stealing quad away from you. Of course, they're all dangerous. It depends how the team is playing, the positions you're standing. So you've got to watch this one. As I've all said, you can move out into the mega room earlier to get a view on how many people are coming through. Maybe just put them off, slow them down a little bit. But usually, as well, their focus will be to get the last mega for the quad and then come.
The thing you have to worry about is if you are all sat, say you've got one person, I mean, you might think these are good positions, but one person here, one person on the other side, someone around here waiting to pick quad up, and then maybe someone near that doorway but not in it. The thing you have to worry about sitting in those positions is you're not going to have any idea what direction their attack is going to come from until they're pretty much in the quad room. The first you'll see is someone's foot coming around this corner here. That other side, the first you'll see is them actually poking their head round that corner. And it's the same in that situation. So if you actually push out, you've got all the information. You can see them come through there. I mean, if you're stood here or whatever, they're not going to come around that corner and instantly flick rail you unless they happen to be using something.
Or just very good.
Oh, this very good, yeah. So, you're in a safe position, and then you can back straight off as soon as you hear the call that they're from another direction, or as soon as you see them come round, you say, alright, they're coming from Mega. You're back round into a position like this, ready to spam as they come round that corner. But if you're all just back here at the back of the quad, you deny yourself so much information as to what the enemy team's doing, and that's when you start to get caught out, and all of a sudden, one of your sides is completely dead, and that's where they're going to move in from.
So that's looking at quad defense. So we look at quad attack. If we go to the red room, we start from that position, the kind of routes you might take, the planning that might go into this. Now, often teams will back off 30, 40 seconds before to make sure they've got a yellow, make sure they've got a mega to defend that quad with, if they've lost out on the red, or if it's just equal cess.
Just to cover before we talk about attacking quad is situations where you just might not even want to go to quad at all. I mean, we saw in Quake 3 that if a team had 3 or 4 railers due to them just dominating the red, now they wouldn't go to quad. They just sit here looking at the doorways with 3 or 4 railers. Now, I don't know if that will be as viable in Quake Live, but it's something to think about. You know, are you controlling the red so dominantly that you feel that you can just rail the quad as it comes in? I mean, it's something to think about.
Yeah, so we're at the red position. We've got that's a viable option to not go to quad. You can actually, it's something that teams don't use on other maps very often either. I mean, something like Dreadful Place has a kind of very locked down quad, so you could play for not going to
what
the
do you
quad
want
on
to do?
that as well.
Throw away 5 or 6 frags trying to get into quad, or not go there at all and take the chance that the quad is not actually going to get that many frags, as it so often doesn't on that map.
Mop up the items and just counter him when he moves out through a tight doorway. So that's a perfectly viable solution on this map. And they're some of the most exciting moments to stream, actually, is when one team does sit back, you know the other team's set up for a quad, and then you know that battle's going to happen. Which way is the quad going to come from? They're lining up all their players at each doorway, they're spreading out, and then suddenly they're all coming together and you've got this massive battle. That's actually one of the most exciting TDM moments you can probably have in Quake. So looking at how we might plan an attack on the quad. So say they've already set up the quad. We don't know where they are but we can make safe assumptions they're covering most of the doorways. They're probably going to cover the main doorway. They might have someone looking towards the yellow doorway a bit. They're probably going to focus on the mega for sure. So we know where they are. We've got a couple of guys with red armor maybe. Maybe Vor is the last guy. He's going to wait for red and grab it and come in as a later player. But the first guy that got red, maybe, where would we send him? We've got.
Well, if we just want to talk about an absolutely basic quad attack that will probably be effective a lot of the time, then something typical would be you need to know when the mega is, for one. And when you know when the mega is, you come in with 2 or 3 players, but I honestly think 3 players, secure this room, and then from here make your attack. I wouldn't necessarily just make an attack from the red room and do it that way, because then you have to actually come into here and worry about, is there going to be anyone in here or whatever. So I would look to have a time on mega. Now, if you don't have a time on mega, all these plans will go out the window, of course, but make sure you're in here, secure this, take the last mega before quad, and then you've got options. You can send people down that stairway, or they can come out this way. Now, you can expect to meet resistance at this point. They've done what we said. Maybe they'll even know you are in the mega room and they'll know what you're planning. But coming from mega, 2 people maybe out this way, 1 person who's coming from that staircase there.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get in this high position, the mega side in the quad room, then you're coming from a high point, which is obviously giving you an advantage. The other, so that's like a sort of simple quad attack. You might actually.
That's an attack I think is certainly best if you know when mega is, and obviously that's the key. If you don't know when mega is, then what you have to think what are we going to do, because we don't know when mega is. What do? Do we just come in here, wait? I mean, before you know it, you might be waiting for mega, and then all of a sudden it's 10 seconds to a quad. Mega hasn't spawned, and you're like, oh shit, what do we do? That could be a disaster. In a close game, that sort of attack might actually just cost you the game, because you've put all your planning towards getting a mega before quad, and then it doesn't come up, and then you don't know what to do. So, I would say that's a good attack if you know when mega is, but otherwise,
I mean, you should have that in your planning, that if you're gonna go for the next quad, you should have a time on the final mega or the last couple of megas before the power up. You should get a time on it. It's easy to get a time on this map actually, so because with the teleport camping, you can get a time on it. Even if you're going to commit suicide, effectively finding out that time, it might be more important, because of course on top of that, if you're not going to get the mega anyway, but you know the time of it, you know that they'll be moving towards it, and they'll probably send 2 people because it's that last mega, it's important, which means there's only 2 people defending quad, which means you could rush all 4 at that point and get in behind them. So there's a lot of variables to take into account there. Actually, when I think about this map, I think it's one of the best for quad attacks and defenses in the kind of setup you might play, and in that way it's kind of like, you know, I can see CTF fans enjoying this map. You know, it's a flat 2D pane, it's simple, it's all about formations of players, the directions and routes they take, the timing of the attacks together, coordination, and about the options you take in each attack. So every power-up attack is almost like an attack of a flag defense, or an attack of, say, that new mode that's maybe coming out, attack versus defense or whatever. It's like a base setup, and then you're choosing how you're going to set your formation up, your strategy to attack it. And there's so many different variations, but the key ones are obviously the focus on mega, and I think then the other side of the map, sending 1 person in the yellow armor side for.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the variation would come in. Like, do you want to send 3 people one there and then 1 person the complete other side of the map, or maybe they want to come through the middle, if we're talking about timing the mega, of course. Or if you're not worried about the mega so much, you know, then how do you split it? Do you send 1 person yellow, 1 person middle, 2 mega, or 2 yellow, 1 middle, 1 mega? I mean, there's a lot to think about. I think part of that would come down to, you know, you're playing the map, you've got to 20 minutes, you've got to think about how have they defended each quad previously. Is there a weak point in their defense? You know, does the same player always defend this same place? Is he their weakest
do you
player?
have? What armor do you have?
Yeah, there's a lot to think about.
Item times. There's
you know, you might keep going this route and never have any success. Maybe you should try something different. I mean, if you can never get in this way, maybe you should take that as a sign that there's a weaker route in that they're not defending as well.
Going back traditionally as well, I mean, that is quite a solid doorway that teams will defend with, say, rocket launcher, etc. So
yeah, because it's, as I said, I mean, if someone pushes out to the health, I mean, they've got an extra 50 health basically.
This doorway, I would say, generally, well, not generally, but often, teams wouldn't attack by this route. They would send a lot of players mega health and maybe 1 the yellow armor route, which would actually often be the quad carrier. So for example, we do the mega health setup, we send 3 people to secure that final mega, and vor waits at red for the final red. Now this is 10, even 15 seconds before a quad. Vor takes the red, and his teammates on the mega side, so he's going to go the yellow armor route. So he'll take the red, and then he'll go, and he has to be cautious at first, of course.
Yeah, because, you know, there could be someone, I doubt there'd ever be someone around this corner, but no, there could be someone around here waiting for potential attack.
Now, if he's gone long enough ahead, he might even consider, if he's got time on yellow as well, that would be even more ideal, is he can get the final yellow before the power-up. Either way, he can sneak up behind, wait. If they haven't pushed out properly, then this is the very real risk that he could get to this point and have not met any opposition. I mean, look how close he is to quad here. He's literally 2 jumps away from it. So you can get as far as this, and you're on top of the power. Now that's why you'd have the quad carrier here, because he's less likely to take as much damage getting in, and he's so close to quad. Whereas the other guys getting the mega, they're almost like the distraction on the pick.
Of course, now in Quake Live, with the addition of so many new wonderful console commands, you know, you can be sat here and looking at your teammates through the walls and seeing what they're up to. I mean, you can really time everything perfectly. Say you wanted to come in at the exact same time, and you can see them through this wall, and then you're in at the same time. They've just come through that doorway. And
you obviously hear them fighting, and you've obviously got your voice comms as well. So there's so many ways that you can know when to come in exactly. But knowing the quad time obviously is very important if you're going to take this position as well. You'd wait for your teammates to move in first, take the fire, and then knowing the quad time, you just come diving in at the right time and grab it. But this is why this is a great route to take, because if they don't defend it, if they don't push out and defend it properly, then you can get as far as this without taking any damage. You can have a stack and be that close to quad.
Yeah. Whereas, let's say if they actually did push out and defend it, they're going to deal with you on this corner. Maybe they just sat here silently and they can hear you jumping in, No, one opportunity for some rockets. Back off to this doorway, another opportunity.
You're not
for
coming
some
round the
rockets.
corner against a competent player.
And then you've got another corner. So
That's
it'd
why,
be so
yeah.
frustrating, and you'd have no way in at that point, and you'd actually be completely out of that quad play.
Well, I mean, depending on the timing, you would, if you're taking that route to attack and you see a player defending that yellow doorway, you just almost have to abort going straight away, because if they're anywhere near the level of competence they should be, you're not going to get into that quad without taking significant damage. So it's probably better just stay